Greetings, patriots and my fellow infidels. Hey, this is Jim, and hopefully you'll share this video. This is a very, very important video. This video that you're watching right now is probably unlike any of the videos I've ever done. We're not talking really politics tonight. We're not talking about the gun grab tonight or UN troops. We're going to talk about Islam. Now, you know, for years I've been speaking out against Islam, me and Terry Jones. Allah is not God, Muhammad is not his messenger. We're going to talk about that tonight. Sitting with me right now is a man that I met just now, but this is interesting. I believe this meeting is ordained by God, it was predestined by God, and I'm going to tell you why. A couple weeks ago, before Adam speaks, I got to share how God brought us two together. I was in Walmart walking around with one of my anti-Islamic shirts, and his wife and his son were there shopping in the hardware section, and she kind of giggled and laughed at the shirt I happened to be wearing. And I identified myself. Well, the shirt's kind of risque. It wasn't this one, it's my other one. But we have to shock people into the threat of Islam, and she started telling me about Adam here, how her husband is from Turkey. Yes, this man sitting beside me is the first Turkish ex-Muslim I've ever met in my life. I just met him 5 minutes ago. But this meeting was arranged a couple weeks ago through his wife, and Adam here has accepted Jesus Christ as his personal Lord and Savior about 10 years ago, his wife said. He walked out of the darkness into the light, and I'm going to let Adam share a little bit about his life as a Muslim and about how he left the darkness into the light. In the event this video reaches the 15-minute mark, watch part 2, because currently YouTube is only allowing me to post videos up to 15 minutes. So this may turn into a possibly 2-part video. So with that being said, Adam, why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Adnan Erkol. My real name is Adnan.
To talk a little bit loud so they can hear you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was born in Balıkesir, Turkey, which is about half an hour from biblical Philadelphia. I lived in the city of Philadelphia for 16 years. I used to tell people I didn't move too far away. Both of my grandparents were Islamic preachers. They sent me Islamic school. I always thought Islam, just like everybody, all of the Muslims always say, that Islam was the best religion in the world, it was the last religion in the world, Muhammad was the last prophet. I grew up hearing those, and I believed in them in face value. I mean, I thought I believed in Islam so strongly at one time. If they put a gun to my head and said, you know, change your religion or we're going to kill you, I would have probably said, pull the trigger. So I came to the US in 1988. I was in the U.S. Navy, and
excuse me, when you came in 1988, how old were you at that time?
I was 18 years old.
Okay.
I went in the U.S. Navy in 1990.
Now, this time you hadn't accepted Christ yet, right?
Nope.
So you were entering our U.S. Navy as a Muslim.
I was in the U.S. Navy as a Muslim.
So wow, because we're hearing a lot about military coming in now. So even back in '88, you had Muslims in large numbers joining.
No, there were actually people from Saudi Arabia in the Navy.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's important for people. Okay, go ahead.
So about 2 years I've been on board the ship. Chaplain of the ship called me one day, and he said everybody has been to his office, and I was the only one who has never went there. I said, don't you have any problems? Don't you have anything to share? You know, why didn't you ever come? He said, well, I'm a Muslim and you're a Christian. You know, of course I have problems, but I deal with them myself. So he asked me if he could pray for me. I said, sure, pray for me. You know, but I mean,
I find that quite interesting that you as a Muslim would allow, at the time, an infidel, a kafar.
I wasn't an extremist that way, but the thing is, I had, like every modern Muslim had, I had potential to be an extremist because I didn't know a lot of
Okay,
the
we're going to
things.
get into extreme Islam and moderate Islam, if it even exists. But anyway, go ahead.
Moderate Islam is basically people who don't know their religion. They're born into it, they live it, They don't believe in killing
Like
other
Christians
people.
who don't go to church except on Easter and Christmas, really. You know?
Well, a lot of them go to mosque too, but they just go through the rituals of Islam. They don't know what it is entitled, what Quran says.
They're not
They
really
have no
studying.
idea.
What I'm saying is they're not studying the Quran
They're
like
not
Christians studying. Like many Christians are ignorant of the Bible.
There is in Islamic society never a Quran study. What they do is 80% of the Muslims don't speak Arabic. They read the Quran in Arabic, and that's it. But they don't understand what it's saying. They study something in a language they don't even
Okay,
understand.
well, anyway, go ahead with your story. I just wanted to put that up. So
Well-
the chaplain prayed for you.
He prayed for me. Of course, I didn't get saved then, but I've just told you that story so you know that people prayed for me as early as like 1990.
Wow.
So, anyways, I moved to Pennsylvania in 1994. I made after actually it was in the middle of 1994 after I got out of the Navy, and I met my wife in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. And around those days, my cousins came from Turkey. He became a lawyer in Turkey, and he came to learn English so he could serve foreign clients in Turkey. And my wife got saved 2.5 years before I did. And she used to put her hand on me and pray for me every night. And
So she married you while you were a Muslim,
exactly.
and she was a Christian.
She actually
She had no faith at the time.
she was Catholic, and but she wasn't a practicing Catholic.
Right.
We got married, then she became born again.
Okay, interesting. Go ahead.
2.5 years before I did.
That's interesting. Go ahead.
And she used to put her hands on me, pray for me at night time. That really used to annoy me, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings.
Right.
I didn't say anything to her, but we had I gave her a Quran when I first met her. I wanted her to be a Muslim. She read it and she said it doesn't respect the rights of women, so she couldn't be a
And she
Muslim.
probably wasn't into putting a garbage bag on her, right? You know,
Yeah,
walking around in black Birkin. Go ahead.
Exactly. So, but one day, like I remember, we were in the basement. She started to slam my head to the basement's wall. I said, "You're so smart. Why can't you?"
She was
realize
slamming you?
my head on the wall.
Wow, I met your wife. She
said she
where'd
was
she
trying
get all
to
that
knock some-
strength from?
Yeah, she was trying to knock some sense into it.
Golly, yeah. Go ahead.
She says, "Oh, you're so intelligent. How can you not realize Jesus is the only way?" You know.
Right, okay.
So, anyways, that went on like 2.5 years, and one day she just started to pick up her stuff, and she was leaving the house, and she said she's not going to cast her purse against swine anymore. Of course, I didn't know what that meant.
So
You know,
she's
I didn't
referring to
know
you.
the
You didn't know that she was calling you a pig, but go ahead.
Bible. No, she called me, but I didn't know.
Well,
what was-
casting the
was
pearls
biblical.
before
It was
swine.
a-
You know, she's throwing the pearls of wisdom, and I guess you're a swine because she's throwing them at you. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, anyways, I went over to my cousin's house, he was a lawyer, and we were arguing, debating about religion, and I said, why are wars fought over religion? Why do we fight over religion? Why can't we all get along? I said, why is religion so important? And my cousin says, well, that's why I don't believe in Allah. And I said, how come you don't believe in Allah? He says when he was going through law school, he read some books.
And he was Turkish too, of
He's
course.
Turkish, exactly. He read some books and he says Islam doesn't make any sense. And he became an atheist.
And you were shocked with him being a fellow, not only your cousin, but being from Turkey. Like you're shocked that he said.
And I said, how come you never told me that? And he says, well, I knew that you're religious and I didn't want to argue with you. That's why I told you. But he said Islam doesn't make any sense. So I started asking him some questions. He said, don't ask me any questions. He directed me to some internet sites. He said, here are the books that I read that made me lose my faith, his faith in Islam. And he said, read them, and then you can come to my level, then come back and let's talk, let's debate.
Right.
So I went home, there were two sites. One of them was made by a Turkish atheist called Turan Dursun, which they killed him a couple of years previous to that in Turkey. He wrote a lot of books about Islam. He was a mufti, very high preacher.
Can you say that word again?
Mufti.
A mushtu?
Mufti.
Is that how we say maybe in English a mafadi or whatever?
I think
Like M-U-F-T-I, something like that, right?
It would be like somebody who went to the seminary.
So is
4
that
years
higher than an
4
imam?
years of seminary school. Well, imams usually go like Some of them all actually just go to like a technical kind of school.
So it's a higher level in Islam than in Iman.
Or way higher.
Okay. Well, that, I
they
learned
go
some,
to 4 years of college.
That's interesting because I didn't know that. So I learned something new about their hierarchy, so to speak.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Exactly. He was a mufti, and this guy he became an atheist and started to write books about Islam. And this guy, I mean, there was like Trandursun and İlhan Ersen, another guy. They explain Islam so well. I mean, they will say like, look, they'll take a subject and say it doesn't make sense because of this. And it said they will, if you could go to them and ask them this question about it, their answer will be, this, and it doesn't make sense because of that. And if you ask them this, they will tell you that, but it doesn't make sense either. So they will go like 3
So one
levels
thing,
deeper.
that's one thing contradicting everything. Contradiction.
I'm talking about the same subject. Like, for example, in the Quran.
Give me an example, yes.
In the Quran, in Al-Ma'idah, it says the sun submerges in swamp at nighttime, in a muddy water, because Muhammad thought Earth was flat.
Right.
They asked him where the sun went, and it says it submerges in a swamp, in a muddy water at nighttime. Well, what they do is in translation, every time when they put a word in parentheses in a translation, that is the author's or translator's opinion. It is not in the actual Quran. Okay. So what they do is when they are translating that part, they usually say they put down in parentheses. It seems like it submerges in a swamp, but it is not there. Since most of the Muslims don't speak Arabic, when they are reading it, okay,
Right.
they look at it and they think it is in there, but it's in parentheses. Okay, so it's not in the actual Quran. In the actual Quran, actually, the word is wajadaha. Wajah means face. It says that General Alexander. It's a verse about General Alexander Zulqadir that he went to and found the setting place of the sun.
Right.
He stumbled upon setting place of the sun. So
Right.
basically, so when you go to a preacher and you ask why that it does say that, and they will say, well, the Quran says it seems like, which they will do a taqiyya. Taqiyya means for well-being of Islam, they are allowed to lie.
Taqiyya, yeah,
Okay?
right. Taqiyya.
In 3 cases, they can lie in Islam for your family, okay, for your religion, and for your country. But you can change that around and conform it into anything, and
Which
you can lie about
Muhammad
everything.
has used it, and they used taqiyya to lie to the infidel over the centuries.
Exactly.
Hey, look, we're your friend. Let's make peace, and then stab the enemy in back and conquer your enemy.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So, what happens is, and when you say, look, this is in parentheses, it's not in the actual Quran, they'll come up with a different explanation, or they're going to say you're not supposed to ask questions like that. You become an infidel, and they'll come up with another verse saying that you are not supposed to. I mean, there are 3 verses in the Quran that says you are not supposed to ask questions,
Oh, really?
and it
Okay.
says another. Anyways, I was telling you my life story.
No, it's
Explain.
interesting.
But-
We're going to go into
So
a
what
part
happened-
2 in a minute, but go ahead.
So what happened is, I mean, belief is like, it's a habit. I will read these books all day long. I'm a painter, and I could, going to work, I was just sending my workers, I was sitting at home all day long. I was so involved in it. I was reading it all day long, and I would lose my faith in Islam during the daytime. And I'll go to bed, I'll get up the next day morning, and I will even forget that what I read that made me lose my faith, I'll find myself a Muslim again. So I kept on reading, and then, towards the night time again, I will lose my faith in Islam. So that happened like 3 times, and after the 3rd time, Islam left and didn't come back. And I felt completely empty, So I went over to my cousins, I said, okay, if there is no Allah, how did everything happen? He said, evolution. I checked the evolution, it didn't make no sense either.
Right.
I said, there had to be a God. But which God? Okay. So anyways, and my wife is picking up her stuff and leaving the house. And it was around 12 o'clock. Yeah, it was Saturday night. She came, she's getting last bit of her stuff. And
So she was actually leaving.
she was leaving.
So-
she rented an apartment.
So you're.
Yeah.
So you're.
And
separate-
I didn't tell her what I was reading. She saw these books, but they were all in Turkish.
Wow.
And he said Allah and Muhammad. She thought I was becoming a stronger Muslim. I didn't tell her because
Right.
I didn't want her. I mean, in case I didn't leave Islam or anything, I didn't want her to tell me. I didn't want to give her ammunition to come back and tell me, look, you read it, you're stupid, you still didn't understand. Or
Well, hold
something.
on. We're about to wrap it up in part 1. People, we're going into part 2, and hopefully you're enjoying part 1. Part 2, I guess we're going to hear more about his life and former Muslim accepting Jesus. Part 2, this is part 1.